And then over here, I got some goodies. I got my Hammond organ.
Nice.
And see that Leslie speaker in the room behind it?
Mm-hmm.
There ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. So that's, I just try to come up with stuff. I'm writing songs all the time.
Are you?
It's funny. You sound just like your record.
Well, I think that's the idea. That's because it was actually me. Welcome back to Come and Pick It. I'm Anthony Bonnette, your host. Before we jump in, do me a quick favor. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune in, really, hit that 5-star rating. It really helps the show. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and leave us a comment. Also, be sure to check out the Come and Pick It Clips channel for episode highlights and the best moments from the show. And for all the latest updates, head over to comeandpickitpodcast.com to sign up for the email list. All right, let's get to it. All right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Come and Pick It, where we sit down with the folks behind the music, the stories, and the moments that make this whole crazy business worth it. Now, today, I'm sitting across from a guy who's got more road stories than a truck stop diner, more hits than a jukebox, and enough heart to fill the Ryman twice over. You might have seen him on stage with Glen Campbell, Kenny Chesney, Lee Greenwood, or maybe even on Hawaii 5-0. Yep, he's even popped up on TV. He's a songwriter, a touring pro, a band leader, a producer, and even a school music program guy who's probably inspired more kids than a good-looking substitute teacher. His latest project is a new podcast, a new record, new band, and a few more chart toppers in Texas. So, yeah, this ain't your average guest. Grab your coffee or your whiskey and let's dive in with the one and only Jeff Dayton. Man, first of all, thanks for taking the time. I know you stay booked and super busy, so this means a lot for us, you being here.
Oh, you bet, Anthony. I tell you what a gas to be on your show. I love that intro. Is worth the price of admission right there.
You never had a talk-up guy where they were, or like a walk-up song where those kids, when they're batting, they have that song that kind of gets them hyped, they say.
Yeah, or like ride-out music in the rodeo,
Right.
Copy a hot ride-out song. Listen
there
to that.
You go.
I love
Well, let's start where it all begins. Tell me about where you grew up in Minnesota. What kind of music was in your house?
All kinds of stuff. Minnesota's a real crossroads. It's a variety of everything from old blues and folk music to rock and roll. When I was about just barely 22, 23 years old, there was a young kid in Minneapolis that borrowed my guitar in the studio, and he was playing all his own instruments, drums and piano and singing harmonies, and his name was Prince. And our drummer, Bobby, said, man, I like what he's doing. If we ever break up, I'm going to hang with him. And that's what happened. And he became Bobby Z in the Revolution for Purple Rain. And his brother David was, on and on. We had Bob Dylan. We had the punk music. We had the Suburbs. Yeah. We had Husker Du. We had just a whole crossroads again. It's like where everything met. We had Wally Pickle. I mean, we had polka music. And
yeah, that's good there.
Minnesota's got a great history. John Lokomaika'i was the guy who wrote "Satin Sheets to Lie On."
Oh yeah, good.
And Dave Dudley, 6 Days on the Road. I mean, he was the Twin Cities guy. So country music goes back pretty far there.
Cool. Yeah, it is kind of a crossroads. I never really thought of it that way, but you're right. I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and hard rock and all that stuff. And I never really was I was in one band that we wore lame shirts and platform shoes, but I couldn't get my platform shoes under my steel guitar. So I just went back to wearing tennis shoes like I was at.
Yeah, that's our steel guitar player. He always wears just flat shoes on bottom, never boots. So I guess that's a. So when did the regular guitar become your thing? The traditional 6-string guitar?
Well, I just had the bug as a kid. My dad had one. I opened the closet one day and there was this guitar leaning against on the floor between the shirts. I was like, whoa, this is cool. And it turns out he was a weekend warrior playing in Dixieland bands, and he was a strummer. He was like an old, Joe Pass kind of thing. Here's that old guitar that reminds me of my dad. That kind of
nice.
That kind of guitar playing. I've got that in his honor. And man, we just I loved music. The Beatles were a big inspiration, and so I begged my mom till she bought me a guitar when I was almost 10, and I was off and running, playing with my pals, and it was fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
So walk me into that next chapter then. Yep, Arizona. How'd you get from there to Arizona?
Well, as I mentioned, I had some bands in high school, just garage bands and stuff like that, and then when I went to the University of Minnesota, I got involved in the jazz ensemble, playing guitar, doing Thad Jones and Phil Woods, and I got to work with those guys and Dizzy Gillespie. We toured, we went down to Mexico City and did a tour down there, and it was really fun. And so I was really actually making my money 5 days a week playing clubs, or however often I could get booked. Moved to Arizona, you're right, and got down there and transferred over to Arizona State University. And then it really took off, because right then is when Urban Cowboy hit. And you know what happened. The world started raining hats and boots, man. It was great. Now, I mean, you're a Texas guy, so you understand. But, out in Arizona, it was very cowboy-centric, too. I mean, we had the Basin Rodeo and the Gaisila, Bluegrass Festival, and old, Prescott, Arizona, the old stories of the miners and the Westerners. And so, it was fun to be there and learn all that Bob Wills. I really fell in love with Western swing when I got down there. Small world story. Right across the street from me, I just said hi to her this morning. I was taking in her trash after the guy picked it up. Is the widow of Taking Away Leon Rhodes from Texas Troubadour. So that's Nashville for you. You can't turn left and not hit 350s.
Yeah. So you had, when was it when you formed the Jeff Dayton band?
After we had a couple of bands that did pretty well, I had High Noon. I had a band called the Dayton Privet Band with a good fiddle player. And High Noon ended up coming to Nashville to compete in the Wrangler Country Showdown in 1983. And I fell in love with Nashville and songwriting. I knew I was a guy that liked writing songs, but it was a big event that the Arizona Songwriters Association put on in 81 that blew my mind. And I became a songwriter. After High Noon split up, everybody kind of went different ways. There was a band out of El Paso that got our bass player, a band called Windfall. And anyway, everybody ended up doing fun stuff. And I had to have a name because I had some gigs left over after High Noon split up. And I was like, well, the Jeff Dayton something or other. And I just said, to heck with it, Jeff Dayton Band.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. And we did well. We started recording. We opened shows for 1 million people. I mean, I was opening actually got to play with Bo Diddley, back him up for 2 shows at the Arizona State Fair. We did shows for everyone. And about that same time, we put out a little record, and I got a call from the music guy, Buddy Owens, over at KNIX Radio, which was owned by Buck Owens. And it was the biggest game in town. I mean, of any format. And he said, we love your record. And I said, oh, thanks. I was just dropping it off for you. He said, no, we love it so much, we're going to make a single out of this one song. And it ended up,
cool.
It became a number 1 record at KNIX, which has never been done by a local band before or since. So it was pretty cool. And then around then, I met that famous guy from Arkansas.
Who's that?
Glen Campbell.
Oh, I've heard of him, I think.
Yeah, you probably heard of him, but I didn't know if you needed a minute to get to that point.
No, I'm always ready for a Glen Campbell story.
Well, we were playing the McDowell, the Coliseum there, McDowell Avenue, where they call it the Madhouse on McDowell, Veterans Memorial Coliseum. And we were opening for the Judds in Alabama and Merle Haggard. And Haggard was, turns out, an old pal of Glen's, because he played on I'd Like to Settle Down. And that's Glen on. Yep. And Glen singing harmony with Bonnie Owens, who was Buck's ex. That's how it goes in country music, right? And he came backstage after our set, and he wanted to meet me. And I'd never met him. I heard he lived in Phoenix, but there he was. And the very next, we talked briefly. And the next night we were doing a grand opening of a golf course for Jack Nicklaus up in Carefree, Arizona. And there was Jack Nicklaus at his table, and sitting next to him, chewing a steak, was Glen Campbell. I was like, all right. I walked up to him. I said, hey, old buddy. There you go. I said, you want to sit in with the band? And he rattled off some titles. He said, you know these? I said, sure. But we didn't know him. I mean, who's going to say no when you got Glen Campbell coming up? So we ended up doing about a half hour together. And we did Take Me Back to Tulsa and Rose of San Antone, twin fiddles. Steel guitar, that when you hear train fiddle and the steel guitar,
there you go.
That Strait thing. And we did Rocky Top and a few of his hits, the easier ones, I guess, Phoenix and Wichita and Southern Nights, I think. And he slid the pick in the strings of my guitar and took off. And I was like, doggone, I'd sure like to find out if I can, throw a song his way or something.
Yeah.
Well,
sure.
He was gone. I ran around the parking lot looking for him, and he was gone. And 3 days later, my phone rings, and my ex-mother-in-law, the late, wonderful Nan, she goes, it's Glen Campbell. She dropped the phone on the floor. And he called me up to tell me that he liked the band, and he wanted to hire me as his new band leader, and he wanted to take all of us with him.
Oh, that is awesome. That's like a Cinderella story.
It really is. And, the funny thing is, there's another one of those. My cut that I had with George Strait was on the Fort Worth album. And everybody seems to, the bands down there say, oh, man, we used to play that song. A song called Any Old Time. It's on the Fort Worth album. If you want to slide that in here, I'd be honored.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That happened by doing a terrible demo on a 4-track cassette player that you could only record 2 tracks at a time, and then you had to bounce down. And I had a really cheap bass that I traded a guy candy bars for, and I had a steel guitar, and I had a classical guitar. Didn't even have a steel string, and a drum machine that went boom tick boom tick boom tick boom tick, and that was my demo. And I made 2 cassettes. I took one to a girl that was going to the concert, and she said she'd give it to the band after in the autograph line, and the other one I took to the show during sound check and talked to the guy that was opening up, the local band that was opening there. It was at Graham Central Station in Phoenix. And about a month later, I got a letter from Herb Woolsey, the guy that just passed away last year, about a year ago. And he was George's manager from the beginning to the end of his life. And he said, we've got your song. We want to record it on George. And I was like, there you go. So again, not the way it's usually done.
It's not. I mean, those are great stories, but really, it kind of gives me false hope because things just. So I think God loves you more than He loves me.
Not even close. Not even close. We're all His kids, We're all His kids, and I think sometimes the answer is just not yet. Sometimes the answer is yes, but again, that's going back to the '80s, and. Right. The fact that I'm still here and still swinging and everything close to the plate is pretty all right.
Yeah.
You play a little ball Did you play a little ball?
Did.
Yeah.
I did. I played Little League from they didn't have T-ball when I was that age, but as soon as they'd let me play, I played, and all the way through high school.
What position?
That's as far as it went. Well, I played shortstop up until when maybe 13 or 14, and we had a good shortstop, so I moved to center field and played center and pitched.
Nice. I figured you for a pitcher, actually.
I could throw really hard. If we had any training, like just as far as getting my legs involved, I think I could have thrown high 90s to. High 90s is just regular run of the mill now. You're not even a power pitcher anymore unless you're throwing 100. And I was throwing low 90s in high school with really no fundamentals.
Well, without training, I was thinking Glenn would say something like that. Yeah, you could throw nearly 100 miles an hour, but you didn't want to be in the batter's box when you did it.
That's exactly right.
Might be coming right at your head.
That's exactly. I hit a lot of kids, and when I was young.
Yeah, you saw that Nolan Ryan special where he talked about, I might have brushed a guy back a little bit.
He's the greatest.
Yeah, he was tremendous. There used to be a guy in our company that dated his daughter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Apparently she was a catch.
Yeah, he's a pretty big deal down here. That catch, that's funny. Yeah. He's a big deal down here, as you might think.
Yeah, I'm a lifelong baseball fan. I've got cool. I've been to the Nashville Sounds. I've been to. We've got a pretty good little park here in town too. You ever come to Nashville? We got to catch us a ball game. Yeah,
we should do it.
Yeah, love to.
Get one of those $15 beers they got up there.
Yeah, we got all kinds of good food in town, and there's fun themes on the shows. One night they have we've gone to the Dogs Night or Poochie Tuesday or whatever they call it. You can bring your dog to the park.
Really?
Yeah.
Do they allow 5-pound Yorkies? My wife could bring her little dog.
Yeah, they have a size limit.
Is it as long as it's not on the bottom end?
As long as it's
pretty
not,
small.
Yeah, no. I saw a German Shepherd sitting up in a seat looking at the game. I had to take a picture of that. Yeah, but it's cool. Baseball, music. We all radio. It's like the sports and music and being on a microphone thing that all of us have a bug for it.
It seems like it. And baseball is in its own league as far as that goes. It's different than any other sport. Yeah, thank you.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
But it's a little more laid back, and there's room for the performative between innings. The mascot comes out and they'll run around and do their thing.
Yeah.
So baseball's different.
I enjoy that. I've been able to go to games at Coors Field. I've been to the old Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Stood on the field with the Cardinal before the game while Lee Greenwood was singing when I was with him. I mentioned Target Field, Met Stadium, and I've been to Wrigley. For those of you who are Cubs fans or Cubs haters, maybe you're Phillies fans, July 6th of 2021, I sang the national anthem for the Cubs and Phils.
Is that right?
Yeah, so you can look it up on my YouTube. It's probably the least watched thing I got, but it's pretty cool.
It's still pretty neat. I bet it ranks a lot higher than that in your heart.
Well, and you finish your singing, and you realize that the longer you hold the note, the more they're going to cheer for you. Of the free, and you're just like milk it, baby. And then you walk off the field, and people are high fiving you like Cal Ripken. It's just
that's fun.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm glad to know that about you because we're gonna have to hang and talk baseball.
Yeah, I'd like that. I always dreamed about maybe going out, singing the national anthem, but maybe warming up with the guys because I can still. My shoulder's still in good shape. Like I said, I quit in high school, so I can probably still hum it in the low 80s, even though I'm.
So you didn't throw it out then, huh?
No, I got low miles.
There you go. Yeah, well, my pitching days are over. I got a double torn rotator cuff in the right, so.
Do you?
And I throw lefty. I can't even throw slop with my lefty.
Well, you see those kids now that are throwing both hands.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 of them in the minors that are. I saw one the other day. I'm not sure if it was real. It was a TikTok, and he was throwing low 90s with his left and high 90s with his right.
Man, Glen Campbell used to say, "I'd give my right arm to be ambidextrous."
That's fun. So you led his band for 15 years.
That's right. Yeah.
What was he like day in and day out?
Well, picture a guy from Arkansas who was raised, picking cotton and walking tomatoes and, living country, the kind of guy he was. He was plain old country folks, and his family, wonderful, wonderful people. They're still down there in Billstown and Delight on the Billstown Highway. One by one, we're losing his brothers and sisters, but they treated me like family. I mean, if I called them up right now, they'd be dinner ready,
Really?
Yeah, they're that kind of people. And
that's good people.
Yeah, they sure are. And he got it from his mom and dad. And, he liked to joke about being from Arkansas. He said, what does it say? He said, a compliment in Arkansas when you meet a girl is nice tooth.
Right.
Now I'm telling you, Glen's Joe. I'm not picking on Arkansas anybody. Come on. Yeah. Hogs have done pretty well in the basketball so far.
They have. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Arkansas. You know, we go up there for a bluegrass festival in Waldron, Arkansas, and Mountain View. Mountain View is a music town. I don't know if you've ever been there.
I have. It's on the way from Paducah to Branson.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, it's a great town. Yeah, it almost is Branson.
Yeah.
It feels like Branson when you're up there too. It's so pretty, picturesque.
Yeah, love it.
So is there any road stories that stand out as like peak Glen Campbell magic?
Well, the magic is anytime he walks up and picks up a guitar, you can just. Sometimes I have a really nice old Taylor that's my number one, and it's built in '91. It had a white top. It's got a golden top now. It's that old. Mm-hmm. It's 34 years old. He would say, "Jeff, give me your rhythm." That's what he called the guitar that he played in the studio. Mm-hmm. They called it rhythm guitar because the lead player was the electric guy.
Right.
And he said, "Boys, I'm going to stand here and pick, and you stand there and marvel." And he would take off on some song. When he would sing, for example, in Branson, we added a lot of material to the set list because we had to. I mean, he got bored, we'd get restless, you know. So we were doing Roy Orbison's Cry, you know, mm-hmm. And he killed it. And we would do Conway. You know, people say this everywhere. They think you're really good, you know. And it was just unbelievable how good that was, you know. So yeah. Let me double check my settings here real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to make sure that my camera is. And I got the I think I'm okay. Let me see where my microphone is here. Oh, what the heck? I'm coming through my. Oh, I can do better than this. Let me see here.
We're gonna have to go from the top. From the top.
Yeah, we can edit this.
Oh yeah, that's cleaner there.
Yeah, now that's a real microphone. I didn't look ahead. I was rushing to get here keep Holly from having to wait. You never want to make a woman wait. So that's this mic here. You hear that tapping?
Yeah, it's clean. Now, Holly, would you rather, since it started off the other way, it's fine? Okay.
Yeah. I think it's probably one of these other microphones. It's a ways away. I should have, looked. I've got a whole bunch of stuff over there.
Okay. You ready again?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk studio life for a minute. You've produced some heavy hitters. What do you love most about being behind the board instead of on stage or behind the mic?
Well, that they have to deliver the goods, and I'm there to help them get it. Just one of the things. And I love working with young talent, and I love working with established talent. In fact, producing Glen Campbell is kind of like saying you make good toast. You open the door, turn the lights on, and he does the rest.
Right.
And it's I produced an album for Glenn and Debbie, his oldest child, his daughter. They used to sing with us, and man, he was just like a one-take master. He'd walk in. He played golf all day one day, and then came in and laid on the floor on his back. They put instead of headphones, they put two Oratone speakers on music stands and hung a microphone over his head while he sang upwards.
Wow.
And he could just nail it. It didn't matter standing up. Yeah. And, the stories of his days in the Wrecking Crew showed me that he was paying attention. And when he was working with Al Casey and Hal Blaine and the piano player on the band by the time I get to Phoenix was the Wrecking Crew. And it was Leon Russell on piano on that. And that kind of thing. When you're around that kind of talent, David Gates from Bread was one of the bass players in the Wrecking Crew. And, of course, the legendary Carol Kay on bass, who also was a killer jazz guitar player. But
I did not know that.
If you're, when he was around them, he learned all the way up, starting out when he moved to L.A. in about 1962, I think. And after he left for his own record career. And so for me, working with guys like that are just a cakewalk. And, Buck Owens, same thing, fun guy and, super easy. And then with the young ones, sometimes they're real green and you spend a good while just encouraging them, really? just giving them, you can do this. And sometimes they've got some great songs. Sometimes they need songs, so you get to write with them and pull their stories out of them. You've probably done some of that yourself.
I have. I'm wondering, how much arrangement do you do? So somebody brings in a song that they wrote on the guitar, so you've got maybe a chord progression and lyrics, and that's it. So everything else you have to do. You have to imagine.
I do, and I love doing that. And my favorite day recording a record for anybody is the day when all the studio players are there and we're cutting what we call the basic track. It's being on the floor, as we say. Everybody's feet are on the floor. The magic's happening in between guys. I'll play a little something and somebody goes, "Hey, that's cool. Let me try adding that. Let me harmonize that." And as a producer, when the guys are warming up, and maybe Jimmy Nichols or whoever, Mike Rojas is playing a piano thing, I'm like, man, I like that. Let's use that for the intro. Let's just take everything on the page, move it over 8 bars, and put that 8 bars in there first, and then we'll kind of, we'll taper in from there. And everyone speaks the same language. We know how to get the job done. And here in Nashville, if you can't cut it, you weren't there to begin with.
Right.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's those Nashville cats been playing since those babies.
Yes, indeed. And, get work before they're 2. And that's a favorite old song of mine. I've gotten to record with legendary cats like, Lonnie Wilson, the drummer, been on 400 top 10 records. He co-wrote and produced All My Friends Say for Luke Bryan. And
it's a great song.
All that Brooks and Dunn, and I'm a hard working man. That's that stuff, and the first 3 Rascal Flatts records. Most of the time, I use Brent Mason. He's a young guitar player who's just getting started. I'm just kidding. He's
not though.
We were cutting one day, and I said, "Hey, Lonnie, how many number ones have you played on?" And he says, "Well, 120 number ones, about 400 top 10s." And I said, "Hey, Brent, how many have you played on?" And another guy across the room goes, "All of them."
All the rest. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all that George Strait stuff since, 40 albums ago. Yeah. He's unreal. And he's a super nice guy to work with. So, yeah. And again, as a producer, I pick up from working with guys like that because I get to taste that fine, that clear water that they bring you,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's not just, the talent is undeniable, but it's also workflow. Once you've worked around people who do things at a really high level, you see how they do it and you kind of just follow suit.
Yeah.
So it's helpful for you too.
It is. And, when you're doing that along the way, sometimes you'll be on a session where you're just like a side guy and and that's the session that the drummer is on, that he wants to try it 3 ways and he wants everyone to, he wants to play it 3 ways and then have them decide. It's like, no, you decide, we're moving on, Right. But hey, wait a second. What if I played it like this, and everybody's going like, we got it. Just so, yeah, there's a certain etiquette that goes into it. And you learn your way around the manners and the language and all that stuff. But yeah, this is Nashville. I mean, I'm sure Texas is this way everywhere. And I've got my eye on coming down there at some point, but this is such a great town for pickers, for the guy that that engineers Florida, Georgia. He engineered Truck Bed for Hardy. He engineers Ernest. He's done the Morgan Wallen stuff. Lives across the street and up the road.
Really?
Yeah.
So you roll his house around Halloween, huh?
Yeah. I tell you what, he's a great guy. I wouldn't do that to him. Really? We have this new trio, and he was the engineer for all the recording on that at a studio called Dark Horse. And he's super busy. I mean, he's a top call first engineer, the chief guy. So, yeah,
so, I've heard you say it's like playing fantasy baseball, how you kind of cherry pick. How do you kind of put the people together? How do you match?
Well, first of all, I kind of want to have a vibe for what the project is going to do, what sort of a thing I'm looking for. And so if I'm doing bluegrass, I'm not calling Brent. I'm calling, I'm calling other guys. I'm calling Luke Bulla and Forrest O'Connor and Mike Bubb and guys like that. If I'm in Josh Swift on dobro, I love him. And Randy Kors is a madman on the dobro. And if I'm doing something that's hard rocking, I want a different drummer, than Lonnie Wilson. Right. I mean, Lonnie's great, but I might want a guy who's more, 25 years younger and has that I'll play till I drop kind of thing,
Right.
And I had a couple of projects, a young gal named Kimberly Morton, and sadly we lost her a bit ago, but, she was just such a sweetheart and her mom was such a sweetheart. And so I called a band of sweethearts. I didn't want any jerks or any guys that were going to be throwing, filthy humor around when she and her mom were there. And like when she was only 12 years old when we cut her, I wouldn't have some F-bomb dropping guy in there, Right. So it's vibe, it's style, it's and what you want to get, And so I always try to get the best in my price range.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a good one there too.
Yeah. I enjoy that a lot, though. I'm working on a new record right now. It's going to be called, if you're looking at my expensive-looking plywood Minnesota paneling back there, it's called, when the gal that I was seeing for a while, I used to kid her on the phone. I said, I was in the walnut room, darling, in the walnut room. I had to run from the west wing to the east wing to take your call. And so I called this the Walnut Room. So the album right now is called Songs from the Walnut Room.
There you go.
And
I like it.
I want it stripped down more. I want it, I'm not, going to be spending a lot of money in the studio. I might import a player or two. I've got some great guys. I mentioned Forrest O'Connor, great flat top player, great mandolin player. His wife plays great fiddle. And he was on my most recent record on a song called The Cardinal. That was all his playing and just me singing. So I'll do some of that. I've got a Hammond organ and a bunch of synthesizer parts. I know how to program some real simple rhythm and stuff. And then I've got a couple closets full of guitars and keep it simple,
Mine are all hanging up. But I like music. I like simple music. I like a fully produced driving song and I like 80s music too. Yeah. Just with all the synthesizers and stuff. But I like it to be stripped back. The older I get, the more I like it to be lyrics forward and everything else to be in support of the story I'm trying to tell or the artist is trying to tell, not just for me.
Yeah, I've got another song on the record that's very much like that. And it's just going to be a couple guitars. And it's called Rascal. And it is sort of a blend of the guys that I really admired, Bob McDill and Guy Clark, and two of those guys that they wrote so many. And Rodney Crowell would fit in there, but he's younger.
He would.
He's almost younger. 15 years younger than both of them. I got to play guitar for Willie, so it's a tip of the hat to him. Cool. I've got guts. I was going to call the album Gut String, but then I thought people think I was skinning cats over here, so I just
they do think that.
Yeah. So there's that, and I mentioned I got a song about a Texas boy that his life did not go real well. And that's going to be just a storyteller song too. So, that's kind of the vibe. And I wish it could all be that simple, but I'm such a ADD poster child that, I've got whatever crosses my mind, I got to do it.
Right. Now over here in Texas, we're real proud of our folks on the charts. And I've heard tell that you've been writing with Case Hardin, who is on a serious hot streak on these charts. Are You With Me, I saw, was sitting at number 1. Do you know anything about that song?
Yeah, I wrote it.
Oh, you did.
Here's how that happened. I had a co-writer from Toronto named Dana Sherrick, and she's a real sweetheart. And she walked up to me at the Commodore here. It's a writers club in Nashville. And she said, I just love your Butterfly song. When I come back from Toronto, would you write with me? And I said, that is the sweetest way to ask. Yes, I would. And so we sat down, and in about 20 minutes, literally, we wrote a song called Stoned. And we got a great demo of it. And Dana, got a plugger for it. And we tried to get it cut, and it for 5 years, It just, we couldn't get it. Everybody loved it. Oh, that'd be a smash for Blake Shelton. Oh, that'd be but somewhere along the line, Bernie Nelson, who's a hit writer, and I think Kenny Greenberg, who is Kenny Chesney's guitar player, plays on all his records, and was on the demo. I think somewhere in there, somebody grabbed a copy and started taking it around a little bit. And the next thing I know, Dana says, "Oh my God, we got a cut in Texas." And I don't know how. And I said, "I don't either, but that's cool." And so, I finally got a hold of Case's management people, and they said, "Yeah, we love the song." And that became number one. And then his manager told me that Case and his producer decided that they would sit down one night and dive into the internet and find everything by Jeff Dayton that they could find. And they came up with two more that they cut, a song called Good As It Gets, and then Are You With Me?
I was going to say, that's a deep dive as much as you write.
Well, I'm glad they found any of it, but the fact that they cared enough to look is a great thing. And
it is.
I'm real happy about that. And then finally I got to talk to Case in between those records, and he's just a wonderful guy, a real sweetheart, and he's got himself a pretty bride, and he's a regular, bring extra spray starch for your Wranglers kind of cowboy,
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I used to play with a duo on Curb Records called Blake and Brian, and they were Texas boys back in the late 90s, and we always kidded around because we said we'd have room for a lot more equipment under the bus if we didn't have to bring an ironing board and all that spray starch for you cowboys. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, so that's how it happened. And Are You With Me just went number one just very recently. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So have you ever written a song that's like a Texas themed song, or do you just write songs, that things pop into your head and you write it?
Well, there's both. I've been working on a new song called Up on the Bow. It's a real Kenny Chesney vibe, kind of cool, mellow, up on the bow, the world feels better somehow,
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So you boat people down there. And, but while I was putting some things together for rehearsal this morning, another idea came to me, and I went, "Oh my God, this is a perfect Guy Clark song." And, we've lost Guy, so somebody's got to pick up the banner, charge ahead. So I've come up with most of a song. It really didn't, most of it took 30 minutes, and it's called Apple Brown Betty and Blueberry Pie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
sounds like it would work.
Yeah. And that'll have kind of just a string band waltz to it. I've got another one that's going to be Cuban styled with horns and percussion and stuff, and it's called Halfway to Cuba. It's about being in Key West,
Yeah, I like that.
And
I like themed songs like that, especially if the lyrics and the theme match. The mismatching sometimes, I always think about, and I like this song and the artist, but Clay Walker's "Then What" always pops into my mind. The song doesn't have any lyrical connection to the beachy vibe that it's got. So I know it's a great song.
I am working on, there's a song on the stack for the next record. It's called When It's Cold in Texas. And
it gets cold here sometimes.
Yeah, I think we talked about that first time I chatted with you. It's all over, and I've even got plans for a Dixieland band, and that would be not like drums, even not even drums, upright bass, 4-string banjo, tenor style, chunk, a clarinet, a trombone, and not a trumpet, but a cornet, like Louis Armstrong played. Yeah, and it's called "Don't Go to Paris Alone."
Like Leon Redbone style.
Oh, I love that. So I'm a big fan of all that. I mean, Texas songwriters with 3 names, and Lyle Lovett, and Steve Earle, and Guy Clark, and all that stuff. I knew Steve Earle's son, Justin Towns Earle, was a great guy, and I knew him pretty well for a couple of years until he took off on his tour, and sad that we lost him. So, I got to be me, and then everybody else can figure out what to call it,
For sure. Speaking of that, you just launched a podcast too, right? Called Count It Off.
Yes, sir.
Tell us what that's going to be all about.
Well, it's been playing on 2 different internet radio stations. One is called Beachfront Radio. It plays on Wednesday nights on Beachfront at 7 p.m. Central, Texas time, Nashville time. And the other station is called Dockside Live, and it plays at 6 o'clock on Mondays Central time. And what I do, I have a podcast that I talk to people about the world of music. So it's Count It Off, your fresh new window into the world of music. And the fun thing is that I've gotten a lot of people, including yourself, coming up in the show. You kind of know the vibe. And we just talk about the music biz and your careers, just like we're doing. And Count It Off is what my friend in LA, he's like a movie star, Hollywood kind of guy, and music guy. And I say, hey, Ryan, you want to get dinner when I'm out there in LA? He goes, count it off. So
that's what he said.
Like, basically it just means I'm ready, I'm ready. Yeah. So that's that, and I've got a long list of people who are going to be on. The guy who was on last week is Roger Bartlett. He was Jimmy Buffett's first sideman. He was the original Coral Reefer. That's neat. We got to talk about him and Jimmy and traveling around and Jerry Jeff. That's another guy I admire the heck out of. Yeah. Big Jerry Jeff fan. So yeah, somewhere in there, there's jazz guys, there's studio guys, there's a guitar tech for Casey Musgraves. He worked for the Dixie Chicks before that, the Mavericks before that, George Thorogood. I mean, you name it, and you get a chance to hear the stories, like when they were out on tour opening for the Stones, and talking about the world of, that. I mean, just everybody's got a story.
I'm a big fan of getting those stories out because at a certain point, if the story doesn't come out, this little ride we're on comes to an end, and that story goes with it unless you get it out there. Yeah. I hear you. That's why I'm, big on my kids knowing history and my history so that they can pass something along. I've got a little corner of my bedroom there that's filled with all the old pictures that I still have of my great grandparents, my grandparents, my dad, and that kind of thing. So yeah, cool. It means a lot to me. Well, let's shift gears to something that feels like it runs deep for you from my perspective, which is Hawaii. You first played the Big Island with Glenn, but now I think you've been back 25 times or something.
Something like that.
What keeps bringing you back?
Well, who doesn't like Hawaii, first of all?
Well, yeah, exactly.
That's one of those, dumb question. Yeah, I get it. No offense, but, I realized that I really connected with the islands. And then I found out from my mom that they were honeymooning at the Halekulani in Waikiki in 1952. And I was having lunch there one day years later, and I called Mom when she was still with us. And I had never been there before, but some friends of mine, a musician and her bank president husband, took me to lunch there. It was just a perfect day. And I called her and said, Mom, I just had lunch at the Halekulani. And she goes, oh, that's nice, honey. That's probably where you started out.
That's a great story.
Mom! No. And I think, what it really is in retrospect, is I think that there was a Hawaiian spirit floating by that night. And, I got planted into this, Midwest hoser body, and, then everything else that I did over there, I started going there. We hit it a few times with Glenn. We played the Hawaii Symphony, and I was there for a week in 2002 with Glenn. And we had the days free because once we set up and did rehearsal with the orchestra, we were set, and we didn't have pickup until 6 o'clock. So I was walking the beach and going, I got to do this every year, So once about 2007 came along, that's what I started doing. And 2, 3, 4 times a year. Well, 3 times one year, doing festivals. I did the Kauai Music Festival as a teacher and clinician and performer. It's a songwriting festival, really. And then bumped into a lady one day, and she said, are you going back to Nashville after this? Because she wanted me to write songs with her kid who was 11. And I said, no, I'm going to sneak back over to Oahu and go to Waikiki because my favorite show in the world is Hawaii Five-0. I just love it. And I'm going to sneak around to see if I can get on as an extra. You just, way in the background. She goes, I'm one of the show's producers.
No way.
You see, again, there's that thing, She said, I'm legit. She handed me her card. She goes, here's my card. Call me on Monday. Monday, I was down at the office getting a card made out, the info card on the actors. And then Thursday, I was in wardrobe and on set.
Yeah. Was it a speaking gig? Did you get your SAG card?
They paid me SAG, but no, I was just I was what they call background.
That's still cool.
Yeah, I tell you what, getting some lines would have really paid, but or getting some pages would even be better.
There you go.
But, me trying to act is like a dog trying to surf, It only happens once in a while.
Hey, it's cool when it does, though.
Yeah. Have you ever done any acting?
I've never. No, I'm not a good actor.
You ever rode a horse?
I've been on a horse.
Okay.
I'm not good on a horse, but we were too poor to have horses. I'm good in a flat bottom boat.
There you go.
That's about it.
Yeah. Is that the one with the fan in the back?
No. Well, that's where my grandpa is from, Louisiana, but that's not me. He moved to East Texas in '55, so we've been here ever since.
All right. What's the town again? Oh, we shouldn't say because your fans will mob your house. They'll find out where you are.
Well, I live in a bigger town in East Texas, but I'm from Ore City, Texas. And went to high school there, which is on the north side of Lake of the Pines.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. It's a little town. We had 58 in my graduating class.
I came from a small high school.
Yeah. You did? How small? I think you told me you had less than me, like 40 something.
40 something. Yeah. Yeah. When we threw our hats in here, it was no big deal. It's just like, you kids pick up your mess now.
Well, back to the ocean thing. You had an album. Was it Ocean Country that came out in '24? I think. Yeah. Tell us something about that album.
Well, first of all, it started out with one of the beach radio stations, Beachfront Radio. In fact, a guy that worked for them found me and he asked me if I had any more music, like a song called Shipwrecks, Pirates, and Gold. I wrote that with Aaron Lee. Aaron's from Nashville here, and his dad is Richard Lee, who wrote Don't It Make Your Brown Eyes Blue. So he comes from good songwriting royalty. And we got together and knocked that song out of the park in about an hour in my kitchen down in Brentwood. And anyway, it was a lark to write it, and it was a fun song to sing. But they said, have you got any more? I'm like, I don't know, but I should start thinking about that. So every record I would sneak in a couple more. And pretty soon during COVID, I did a whole album called Calypso Poet. And about half of it was a double album, 25 songs. And about half of it was beach music. And then the next one was called Tropical Troubadour. Again, all beach music pretty much. And, then Ocean Country. But the thing for me is, though, even though I'm doing what they call trop rock or beach country or whatever, coastal Americana, I'm telling stories. I mean, I have a song on the Tropical Troubadour album that's called Hemingway's Cats. Just interesting title. Go write it, So, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of mine start that way too, not to take your story and make it my own, but
we're the same.
That's kind of what songwriting is. It's an idea. Most of the time, it's either an idea or a little turn of phrase that you have to flesh it out and make it into something.
Yeah, I love chasing a title. Like my engineer friend, he says, I love chasing tones. I get a great musician and a great song and a great studio, and then it's microphones and preamps and settings and all this stuff. And maybe we'll try this and maybe we'll try that, Mike had said, chasing tones. And I'm chasing the story more than anything, And, working with Glenn, I'd bring him songs and he would kind of help me edit a little bit. Even just moving one word made a difference. And he kept the same word, but put it around the corner in the new location, and it made all the difference.
It really does.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to level up. I'm trying to say it and get out of the way.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been that. I've always been a little too wordy for songs. So one of what I think I'm good at as I get older is getting rid of a bunch of junk and all the words that you don't need, cutting to the heart of it. And I think young songwriters, struggle with that sometimes.
Billy Williams has produced all of Lyle Lovett's stuff since the get-go. And I don't know if he's still doing it anymore, but he was from Phoenix, and he was a great guy and well-known and kind of a real character. You know, I'd walk in the club for after hours on a Friday night, and they had to play till 3 a.m. And so he'd see me coming in the door way back there across the dance floor, and his guitar was coming off over his head, and he's handing it out to me like, okay, you get up here and pick, and I'm going to go drink, you know. Yeah. And he had just finished the latest Lyle Lovett, me and my mouth, the latest Lyle Lovett record. And he had a scotch in one hand and a cigarette in the other in there at Mr. Lucky's. I said, hey, what was it like doing Joshua Judge's Ruth? And he goes, well, we put a whole bunch of shit on there. We took a whole bunch of shit off.
Yeah. That's how it goes.
Yeah. Sorry about the...
No, that's how you make music.
Yeah. No, I meant dropping the S word in case the kids are listening. Mom, cover their ears.
Well, if they've made it this long, you know, they deserve a prize.
Yeah, but that's just because it was a direct quote.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Jeff, before we wrap this up, you've had a career that most folks only dream of. Looking back, what's something you wish a younger Jeff had known?
Oh, geez. Relax. Don't try so hard. Just go enjoy yourself. Every relationship, every handshake, every hello is not a race to a contract or a deal or selling a vacuum cleaner. I'm glad that I've known what I know about living for over 40 years now, though. And it's taught me to be more patient, because what else am I going to do, you know? It's taught me to be more caring, because somebody's got to, and people need that, you know? And this is a world that's getting skinny on hope and kindness and getting loud on all that other stuff. And,
right.
You know, the whole world's starting to yell at each other, and it's just really not fun to see what's going on. Yeah. You know, countries are telling their citizens don't go to the U.S. because of this, that, or the other thing. And it's not been like that before. So I'm not Henry Kissinger, but I do believe in world peace, and I would love to see us all. Hank Jr. had a song when I was writing at Curb Music, and they put out a record, and they gave this bottle opener, long bottle opener with a picture of him on it. And when you squeezed it to open the beer bottle, it said, "Why can't we all just get a long neck?" So, you know, yeah, it never made it, but it was a cute promotion. I would probably, I don't know. I would probably just tell myself to go easier on myself.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a race. It's a process. It's a journey. It's a cruise. Right. But I'm grateful that, you know, I've survived my mistakes. God put me through some situations that could have covered me up or locked me up or tore me up. And, you know, he seems to have a plan for me. So, you know, my deal these days is like, I suit up in the morning and say, what do I need to do? He goes, you know what to do. And just keep doing it.
Well, I think you're a good man, and I think your parents would be proud of you. What are you most proud of in your life, not just your career? What are you most proud of?
5 kids, 3 grandkids. I mean, you know, wow. I have and 2 ex-wives, a baby mama, and a long-term girlfriend.
There you go.
But, you know,
that's
so
a big
far
group at Christmas.
Yeah, well, they don't all want to be together. Let's put it that way. But, I think I'm most proud of the fact that I put something in the plate instead of taking it out, you know.
Yeah.
A long time ago, that 41 years ago, I said, God, make me more of a putter-backer instead of a taker-outer. So I think I've done a lot of giving, you know, and a friend of mine a long time ago, Bruce Leland, he told me, you can't outgive God. Yeah. So I try to do it, you know, and it's just, I'm proud of the fact that I've kept it between the navigational buoys.
Yep. I've heard that. That's on that Alan Jackson song.
It sure is.
Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? New records, tours, projects?
Yep, just had a call for a couple theaters in Chicago that will take the Garfunkel Manilow Campbell show up there. We've got this trio that, it's Art Garfunkel's guitar player and me being Glen Campbell's guitar player, and Eddie Kilgallen from Montgomery Gentry, and he does Barry Manilow as well as anybody I've ever heard. And he wrote One Night at a Time for Strait. I mean, he was a member of Ricochet, a founding member of that with Daddy's Money and all that, and. So we're building up, right? We just had our, first couple of sold out shows, and we're gunning for the next ones.
Cool.
Yeah.
So is there anything you'd like to tell the folks at home? Any blasts of your own stuff? Any promotions? Any hype?
Well, yeah. I asked Roger Bartlett that question. He said, buy my records. But you can't buy them anymore. So, just go out and help yourself. It's pretty much you get it for free on Spotify. Load up and listen and have a good time. The music's meant to be enjoyed, not archived by the archaeologists of the 41st century,
exactly.
Go enjoy, have a good time. There's plenty of it out there. YouTube channel. I've got an Instagram. I've got, what else have I got? Gosh, I don't know. Got the JeffDaytonMusic.com, and you get caught up on everything, and check out the Count It Off podcast. It should be launching worldwide on a regular streaming on demand basis by summer. I'm still working with the national network that's going to be hosting that and give me a real advantage instead of just being another lonely podcast. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well,
but thanks for asking.
News.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
We can piggyback onto that.
Yeah. Maybe, tell me about your show. What's the next for you guys? Let's get you promoting yourself. My grandmother grandmother used to say, if you don't blow your own horn, nobody will hear it.
That's good advice. Well, for this winter, we've been taking some time off and doing some writing and relaxing just a little bit, playing a lot of acoustic kind of sets. So we're really looking forward to getting back in the groove of playing with the band and playing at a few of our regular spots. So I'm pretty excited about that. We've been rehearsing more the last few weeks. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
And I got to tell your listeners too that the reason I know Anthony and the reason I'm here today is that Palapa Mac Radio mentioned you to me. That's Jeremy McMillan. He's Mac,
Mm-hmm.
And he said, there's a guy down here in Texas. He's coastal, but he doesn't know it yet. And he turned me onto your stuff. And the first thing I found was I'll Do You One Better. And I just fell for that record. It's a great, I know it wasn't cut in Nashville, but it sounds really good. And it's got its own vibe. And you sound just like you sound talking to you. I feel like I'm on TV. So,
I don't know if that's good or not.
Yeah. So, thanks to that, I'm a big fan of Anthony Bonnette. You guys you heard it here first.
Well, thank you for saying that. And thanks for hanging out with us today on Come and Pick It.
Yeah.
If y'all have enjoyed the ride this season, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, drop us a review. It really helps more folks find the show. Until next time, from Jeff Dayton and from Come and Pick It, we'll see you down the road.
Adios.
Hey, y'all, I want to talk to you a minute about T-shirts. You can check this one out right here. It says, Come and Pick It. And I know y'all like that. I hope you also like this shirt with this good-looking fella on the front, the guy without a mustache. He's kind of pretty if you if you like kind of a softer-looking guy. He's good-looking. We got this one here without the guy on there, Anthony Bonnette and Lone Star Steel. Then we got this one that says Anthony Bonnette and Lone Star Steel. It's a navy version. All these shirts have been upgraded to a new, softer style. We really like these new T-shirts. As you can see, I'm wearing one right now. And here's an oldie but a goodie Bonnette song. Any of y'all that know, if you know, you know. It's that kind of a thing. There are more styles available online, more stuff available online, coffee cups and all kind of stuff like that. There's flags. There's Come and Pick It flags you can get. So there's a lot of stuff on there. I hope y'all go check it all out. Check it out at AnthonyBonnette.com.